Please join me in Gasho. Naman Nobs, Naman Nobs, Naman Nobs, Naman Nobs. But we're using the red, Bud. We're using the red Satan and our pledge. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our regular Sunday service. Hard to believe, August is halfway through. Summer is going to start turning towards autumn soon, but it's still nice. I hear it's supposed to warm up again this week. So welcome, and welcome to those who are joining by Zoom as well. And we'll begin our morning service with a moment of silent meditation, followed by the recitation of the name of the Buddha, or the Nembutsu. Naman Nobs, Naman Nobs, Naman Nobs, Naman Nobs, Naman Nobs. Next, we'll read together our pledge, and I'll bring it up on the screen for those who don't have it. Bring it up on the screen as well here. If you don't have the handout, it's on the screen as well. Our pledge. Breaking out of my shell, I shall carefully share a warm smile and speak gentle words, just like the kind Buddha, not becoming lost in my greed, anger, or ignorance. I shall be open-minded and act accordingly, just like the calm and peaceful Buddha. Not putting myself first, I shall share in the joy and sadness of others, just like the compassionate Buddha. Realizing the gift of life we have received, I shall live each day to its fullest, like the Buddha who continues to emancipate all. Namo Amida-butsu. Namo Amida-butsu. Namo Amida-butsu. So for today, we'll be chanting Gasho to Amida, which in your red Satan is on page 123, I believe it was. 123, and it will also be on the screen as well. Naman Nobs, Naman Nobs, Naman Nobs, Naman Nobs. Naman Nobs. recite Amida's name with deep joy and gratitude. I gasho to Amida. Trees and grasses and flowers all grow in great compassion. This light shines throughout the world. I gasho to Amida. Flowers bloom and flowers fall. From the seed sprout new flowers. This is the truth unchanging. I gasho to Amida. Springtime brings the happy birds. Their songs all praise Amida. I join them in Nembutsu. I gasho to Amida. When I call Amida's name, it's Amida calling me. Buddha's voice, my voice are one. I gasho to Amida. When I'm lonely, I recite Namo Amida Butsu. Then I feel great compassion. I gasho to Amida. Nembutsu in work and play. Every day with Amida. Every moment filled with light. I gasho to Amida. Remember the golden chain. Kindness to all living things. I will follow this teaching. I gasho to Amida. In the clear bright morning sun, in the fading light of day, in the darkness of the night, I gasho to Amida. Namo Amida Butsu. I live in great compassion. This great power guides my life. I gasho to Amida. virtue of Amida's vow is shared equally by all, together attaining awakened mind. We are born in the land of peace. Namandops, 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 namandops. Namandops. So once again, good morning. Last weekend, there was a group of us that were out on Vancouver Island for what we call the Vancouver Island Obon Tour. We visited 8 different sites over a course of 5 days. Yeah, we left on Wednesday, and we went to Euclid, Tofino, and Port Alberni, Cumberland, Nanaimo, Chemainus, Duncan, and Ross Bay Cemetery in Victoria. We rented a 12-seater van, which my uncle Kuni and my cousin Denise were the primary drivers for the trip. And when we returned the van, it came out to just over 1,000 kilometers that we had driven throughout this trip. You might be wondering why we go to these places, but it's because there used to be Japanese settlements in these places prior to World War II. And so after World War II, most of these places, the Japanese didn't return. And so Japanese Canadians didn't return to those settlements. And so there are cemeteries there that had been unattended to, and over the years they were either desecrated or vandalized. And so in the 1950s, my grandfather actually started going to pay respect to some of these places. And then in the 60s, they actually, in Cumberland, they made a central monument. And then also in the 80s, during the redress, they also made some monuments at certain places. So we go to these places annually to pay respect. And there's people from the local area who also come out now to also join in. So it was it was taxing, hard, driving and going to all those places, but it was also very rewarding as we got to learn some history in places like Euclid, as well as have fellowship with some of the people there. But anyways, so that's why last week we did not have, well, Roy Sensei had the service here, but there was no Zoom last week. So if some of you tried getting on Zoom last week, we didn't have a service on Zoom. So this week though, what I'd like to do is I'd like to start off by reading a passage. I'll bring that passage up. I'll actually share it. Let me just share it here. So I'm going to read the top passage here. When we work at something in which we put all our heart, there is neither Pacific nor national boundaries. To overcome the many obstacles in life is the sacred and true mind of human beings. Okay? When we work at something in which we put all our heart, there is neither Pacific nor national boundaries. To overcome the many obstacles in life is the sacred and true mind of human beings. And this is a passage from Hisako Nakamura meeting Helen Keller. I've talked about Hisako Nakamura before. Some of you have heard me talk about her before. She was a person who was born pre-war, and at a very young age, she got frostbite and gangrene, and she had both arms and both legs amputated. And so she led a very arduous, difficult life, but her mother, to her credit, didn't let Hisako use it as a handicap. And so her mother made her do things so that when she would no longer be there, Hisako could take care of herself. So Hisako learned to do things that we would normally do with hands, using her mouth. So like threading a needle through the eye, or threading a needle, she would use her tongue and her mouth to put the thread through the eye of the needle. She would do calligraphy using her holding a brush in her mouth, etc., etc. And in order for her to survive, unfortunately in those days in Japan, they still had, they called them freak shows. And she was actually touted, they called her the Daruma girl. You know, the Daruma dolls that have no arms and legs. So Hisako led this very difficult life. She was married several times. And the first 2 times, her husband sort of took advantage of her. And they were alcoholics, and they abused her, etc. And finally, it came about that she came across the writings of Shinran Shonin on Buddhism in Jodo Shinshu, and she realized that there was something that she was able to see, even though she didn't have her hands and legs, that she was actually able to receive compassion. And she goes on to have children of her own, and she gets married for a 3rd time. The 3rd time she got married, though, the gentleman, Mr. Nakamura, was a very kind gentleman. And so in her latter life, she leads a very, more of a normal life. But in 1964, she had the opportunity to meet Helen Keller. You all know Helen Keller, the very famous for being blind, deaf, and dumb. And there's a show called The Miracle Worker about her tutor who brought Helen Keller out of this existence of darkness, and through sign language was able to communicate with her. So when Helen Keller actually went to Japan in 1964 to do a presentation, and at that time they had arranged, by this time Hisako-san was quite renowned in Japan, and so they made an arrangement for her to meet Helen Keller. But Hisako-san didn't, you know, she wanted to give Helen something, a present, a token of their meeting. So she talked to her sensei, and the sensei said, well, Hisako-san, as a part-time occupation, one of the things she did was she actually made clothing for dolls, little Japanese ningyo, and she would sew the clothes by herself. So her sensei said, well, why don't you present her with a Japanese doll? So Helen, or Hisako-san, went and she used some of the funds she gained from her occupation, etc., and she got the material for it. And she got a doll. It was sort of secondhand, so it wasn't the nicest doll, but she proceeded to make the kimono for this doll. And she used all her effort, took her a long time to do it. So on the day that Helen Keller was making the presentation, Hisako-san was taken to the state or the auditorium where Helen was I guess it's not speak, she must have spoken through a translator or something. Anyways, when she went to have the audience with Helen, she was taken to a waiting room. And in that waiting room, to Hisako-san's surprise, there was a Japanese doll, and with it was a card, and it said, "From Takashimaya." And Takashimaya is a very exclusive high-end department store. So Hisako-san looked at that doll, and that doll had tabi on it, like the Japanese, footwear. And it was so elaborate that Hisako-san was embarrassed because she thought, her doll, even though she tried her best, she said, there's no comparison to this very elaborate doll. So at that time, she actually wanted to leave without meeting Helen because she was so embarrassed with her doll. But her sensei said, well, after making all this arrangement, it would be very disrespectful. We can't leave now. So she stayed and she met Helen. And it was said that when Helen came in front of Hisako-san, Helen was told about Hisako-san, so she sort of knew about her. And so when she approached her, Helen felt Hisako-san and felt her face and down her shoulders and to where her so she had little stubs where her hands should have been. And so she felt that, and then she went down and felt that she had no legs. And according to this book by Hisako-san, she said at that point, Helen gently embraced her, and she could feel the tears coming down from Helen's eyes, the eyes that couldn't see. And at that moment, she said, this is where this quote comes from, that when we work at something in which we put all our heart, there is neither Pacific nor national boundaries. To overcome the many obstacles in life is the sacred and true mind of human beings. Okay, so she felt that when she put all her effort into the doll that she presented, but more so I think just the meeting with Helen and Helen knowing that Hisako-san had very similar obstacles. They were able to truly connect with one another, and there were no boundaries. And so I bring this story up because I wanted to share another story with you. There's actually another quote here. This I also introduced before, and it's a poem by the famous Zen Buddhist poet Aida Mitsuo Aida. 出会い、そして感動。人間を動かし、人間を変えていくものは難しい理論や理屈じゃないんだな。感動が人間を動かし、出会いが人間を変えていくんだな。Or in English, he says, it's called encountering and inspiring. People are not moved nor changed by difficult reasoning or rationalization. People are moved when they are inspired. Encountering inspiration is what causes the change. Okay, so I've introduced this poem before too. It really, I think it has a message there of why we are inspired, or how we, through inspiration, we are changed. And again, with the encounter of Hisako-san and Helen Keller, this inspiration, I think both of them inspired each other. Apparently when Helen embraced Hisako-san in front of the audience, Hisako-san said there was, all she could hear was sobbing in the audience as well, as the people who were there also felt that connection. And the reason why I'm sharing all this with you is that on this past Friday, I had the good fortune to have lunch. A number of us had lunch together with the former Japanese Consul General Okada, who is visiting here. He's now retired. Actually, I think he's the only Consul General that I know of after his retirement has actually come back to visit. And so he came out to Steveston here, and he met with several people here, and I was invited to join them for lunch. And over lunch, he told us a very interesting story that I wanted to share with you, and it shows you. I'll explain a little bit more about it afterwards. And so Consul General Okada, after his time here in Vancouver, I think he said it was 2013 to 2016, somewhere around there he was here. He did a lot for us. He did a lot with the community. But after his time here, he went back to Japan. And then he was appointed as an ambassador for South Sudan in Africa. And the South Sudan was a newly formed country. It was formed in 2011. It became independent from Sudan. And he was explaining to us that, you know, the reason why they went independent was most of the Sudanese from the north were Muslims, whereas the Sudanese in the south were Christians, mainly Catholics. So they separated, or they went independent in 2011. But after they went independent, he said, they started finding oil in South Sudan. And this created a problem in that there were many different tribes in South Sudan, and there was a ruling party, government ruling party, but they started warring over the oil, who should have rights to the oil. And apparently it became quite an internal, almost a civil war. And so he said at that time, Okada-san said, at that time, Pope Francis came from the Vatican, since they're mainly Catholics, to try to negotiate a peace deal amongst the leaders of these various tribes. And he said that in the Catholic tradition, there's a tradition where the Pope wears red slippers or shoes, and the custom is for the audience to kiss the feet of the Pope. Okay? But Pope Francis, he said, was specifically against this. He didn't feel that people should kowtow before the Pope. So he didn't wear the red slippers. But what was amazing, he said, on the last day of the visit, the Pope's visit, they had a meeting with the leaders of the warring factions. And it was there, he said, the Pope actually knelt before these leaders, and the Pope kissed their feet. And he said the following day, this became the headline news in Southern Sudan. I'd never heard this story before, but he said this became headline news. And what happened was the people of South Sudan said, enough is enough. And they were so moved by the actions of the Pope that the leaders formed a coalition government. So the Pope is obviously not Japanese or Buddhist, but I think what this goes to show, just as Hisako-san said, to overcome the many obstacles in life is a sacred and true mind of human beings. I think the Pope, he transcended religion, in that what he wanted to do was show compassion and wanted to show humility, humbleness. And I think when we do this, we become inspired, as this last poem by Aida Mitsuo states. It's through inspiration that we are moved. And I think for Hisako-san as well, she had encountered the writings of Shinran Shonin. And in those writings, she realized with all her afflictions that she went through in life, that those were actually sources for her to receive the compassion of Amida Buddha. Without those things that have happened in her life, she may have taken things for granted, she said. But because they happened, she realized how grateful she is for the life that she has. And I think this, again, is inspiration when she encountered the Dharma, encountered the great compassion of Amida Buddha. So I wanted to share this story with you because I thought, wow, that's really an amazing story about Pope Francis. And I think it's something that you don't have to be Buddhist or Catholic to be inspired by. It's the compassion of one human being. And all of us are moved by such stories and such actions. So I'd like to ask you to please join me as I close my talk with a recitation of the Nembutsu. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you very much. And we will, let me just stop sharing this. What's going on here? Something came. Stop sharing. Okay. And we will close our morning service with the singing of Ondoksan in your red seiten. I think it's at the back here. It's on page 134. And I'm just going to bring it up on the screen. Just bring the music up. Oh, sorry. What do I do with that? I have to share the music, the words. Oh, that's not it. Sorry, I'm just sharing the words for the people that are joining us. Oh. Where'd it go? No. Oh, yeah. Okay. Share. Okay, now we go. Okay. Thank you very much. Please be seated.
Thank you, Grant.
He's not finished.
Thanks, Ken. So this will conclude our morning service for today. There are two more Sundays in August, which will be sort of this a little bit more informal, regular service, and then in September we'll start with September 7th with the Shotsuki monthly memorial service. Also, for anybody who's interested, I do have some application or registration forms for the BC Jodo Shinshu Buddhist Temple Federation Convention, which is being hosted by the Vancouver Buddhist Temple. And the guest speaker is Dr. Reverend Mark Uno from Eugene, Oregon. He's an excellent speaker. I highly recommend, if you're able to attend. There is, anyways, the registration's here. It's from September 19th, Friday, September 19th, and concluding on Sunday, September 21st. And I believe all of this is going to be done at the Vancouver Buddhist. Yeah, the venue is at the temple itself. So if you're interested, I'll leave this at the back. So please pick it up. And the earlier you book, register, the better it is. The adult registration fee is $100, which includes all meals. So on that's meals, lunch on Saturday and dinner on Sunday, I believe it is. And I think there might be a lunch also on Sunday. So it includes the meals. So I'll leave this at the back. If you're interested, please take one, and you can also register online as well, okay? So I'll leave this back there. Are there any other announcements? Or yes? I'll be here next week, and then, but the following week I won't be here. Yeah, okay. Thank you. Yeah, so Roy Sensei will be looking after service if I'm not here. Thank you. And that means there will not be Zoom services. Yeah, okay. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day. Again, thank you to those who joined by Zoom.